You're listening to Taking Care of Business with Marty Pay and Clay Kerner on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.
We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Okay, let's play Guess That Song. Can anybody guess the show that song was from? Don't say anything, Goose. I'm going to guess. Was it the Addams Family?
I think it was the Addams Family. Let's move on.
I know Shannon and David are saying it's before our time. It was either the Addams Family or the Munsters, right? Munsters? Yes. Okay. Give the man a cookie.
Goose would know.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the propositions with Shannon and Dave if he wants to kick in. And Goose.
Pass it over to me. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me.
Well, you can tell by our entree there that we're going to start off talking about Proposition 19.
Marijuana.
Marijuana. Mary Jane.
Anybody who didn't do anything wrong in college, stand up.
Hello?
Sorry, nobody's standing here.
Well, listen, truth and disclosure. You know, most of you know I was brought up in my high school and college days in Southern California, and I will freely admit that we did toke a few joints here and there. And, you know, I mean, but am I for the proposition? No. But go ahead, Shannon. What do you think? Proposition 19.
I encourage everybody to vote no on Proposition 19. Let's just think about this from a business standpoint. Who's going to fix the brakes in your car? Who's going to drive the school bus? Who's going to operate on you? Let's look at this realistically. Mm-hmm. And when you look at what they're talking about, they're talking about passing this so that the people who buy marijuana will pay taxes on it. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're buying your pot down the street from Joe and you're going to go to the store after this passes and you're going to pay taxes on it, that's not going to happen. And the people that are behind it are retired law enforcement. Again, they're raising these ridiculous, they're putting up these ridiculous propositions, and they're raising taxes and trying to increase fees to fund pension programs. All of these increases go back to pensions, and when everybody realizes that, we're going to wake up and make some changes.
And, you know, in the argument, Shannon, since I was a kid, was, well, it's no different than drinking. So, I mean, that's no justification. So, in other words, since we have one bad habit out there, we should go ahead and legalize a second one? I mean, that's not logical. It's
not logical at all. And you know what? Pot would be a leading into, you know, it's a cursory drug to lead into other drugs. And it's you know, I don't think it's good for our kids. It's not good for our future. It's not good for economics. It's not good for business. It's not good for safety. And I'm really just almost appalled that retired law enforcement is behind it.
I don't know a whole lot of law enforcement. If you look at the list of people that are supporting it, a lot of I think basically all the sheriffs in the state, most of the law enforcement is against it. As am I. They talk about, the supporters say it's going to pull law enforcement away from enforcing a drug like marijuana, but now we're going to get into enforcing who can grow it, who's stealing it out of whose backyard and growing it. I mean, there's just going to be a whole mess of rules there. And it's so easy to grow and do. They think they're going to tax you. You think those people are turning their tax receipts because they grew a plant in their backyard and they're going to make a ton of money off it?
Yeah.
No, they're not. It's not going to happen.
No, it's a little silly. Who is for Prop 19? Shannon, do you know? I mean, who's for it?
What I have on the information that I've read up, it's the supporters are retired law enforcement.
That's it?
Retired law enforcement. That's what I have on the supporting side of it.
So is it basically a union issue in a way?
I believe that it's a union issue. I do. I believe they're trying to generate revenues in order to pay for pension programs.
It must be a California-only law enforcement because the federal, it's still a criminal act.
It's a criminal act. And then look at the conflict. So they're going to report it on their taxes if they were growing and made this revenue on marijuana, and then it's going to be a violation of federal law.
So who's going to report it?
Well, obviously no one.
Right.
So to think that, well, see, that's why David and I need to go to Sacramento, because to put something on like this on the ballot, or to have something like this take place, it makes no there's no common sense in the whole
there's no
thing.
logic.
It's against the federal law. It's if it passes here, it'll be legal in the state of California, but against federal law, and they think it's going to generate big tax revenues.
Well, and the first thing the feds have to do is attack this law, right? Because they can't let it fly, because it's in, it's the opposite of the federal law. So the feds are going to have to go after it. They can't let it sit there.
I would think that they would. Yes.
I mean, just like they did in Arizona with the immigration.
Well, we can talk about that a little later, maybe. Okay, let's go to the next one. Proposition 20, redistricting of congressional districts.
David, you want to go?
Yeah. Well, obviously, we want to vote yes. Some of the people that are supporting that, obviously the Democrats, they want to keep things the way they are. I was looking on the money list last night, $100,000 came out of Chicago. So a Chicago millionaire wants to see congressional districts stay the way they are and let them have the power to decide and keep their group in power. And I think we need the citizens to get involved in the congressional side and help out.
Now, wasn't this something that we voted on quite a while ago, or?
We voted on this actually a couple of years ago, but they took Congress out of it. Now, 20 is congressional districts. California voted on this, but they took Congress out of it a couple of years ago because they found out that Congress was going to dump a bunch of money into it to stop it.
Oh, okay.
So they separated the two from California to congressional and our congressional districts. But the people that are opponents of this are Nancy Pelosi, environmental leftists, and welfare groups. So, my recommendation is if you see heavy Democratic support, heavy union pension support, Nancy Pelosi's name on anything, then and she's supporting it, then you vote against it. And if she's voting against it, then by all means, it's probably going to be good for us. Gerrymandered districts on this congressional districts, we need people to draw the lines. Look at David's in my district. That's why we're here together, just in California, just here in our community. I go from Taft through the fairly wealthiest part of Bakersfield. I grab Tehachapi and Ridgecrest. David wraps around me from Arvin, Lamont, Wasco, Shafter, Delano, McFarland, and then he has a section of East Bakersfield. Connie Conway and I divide Trona. She has one side of the street and I have the other. Communities need to be made whole. There's no different of interest on one neighbor in Trona or on the other side of the street. There's no difference in East Bakersfield from, the north of Columbus or south of Columbus. We need to keep communities and cities, communities, and counties whole would be the great thing, because we represent communities of interest.
There's something about dividing Trona. There's a couple great straight lines there, Shannon, but I won't touch it.
Well, who are the people that will actually, if 20 passes, who are the people that will be doing the redistricting?
It'll be the citizens redistricting. There's 5 Dems, 5 Republicans, and 4, I think, declined to state. So they're going to come up with a committee, supposedly people that have no interest in it being biased and balanced, and hopefully they do a good job. But they have to do a much better job than what we've got now. You can't really do any worse. You look at my district, I have to spend time down here in Bakersfield, which Bakersfield's been great to me, but it really is 2 different worlds from Fresno County down to Kern County. What's important to people down here is you'd be surprised. Agriculture, water, a lot of that in common, but at the same time, it is a difference, and it is a tough district to run.
Definitely.
So. And Clay, I'm glad you brought up that district, and I know we're going to go in order, but the commission, 2 years ago, we approved for a citizens commission to redraw these lines. And now the measure on the ballot, Prop 27, and I know we skipped ahead,
That's okay.
That says eliminate the commission. And the way it's written, because it comes from, again, a Democratic an office up in Sacramento, and it says, this evil commission. It's not, this commission is what we as Californians has voted on before to let citizens draw the lines. So on 27, we need to say no, because we do not want to eliminate that commission that draws the lines fairly.
Okay, so let's jump to 27, because the two are really related. So we're saying no on 27.
Yes, no on 27.
Because 27 is a no on 27 keeps the commission that we voted for a couple years ago.
Absolutely. 2 years, when we had the ballot 2 years ago, Californians voted on that to support us getting an independent commission made up of independent citizens to draw the lines and take it out of the hands of the legislature. And then now they've got this on the ballot that says to eliminate that commission, and we do not want to eliminate that commission.
So it's no on 27.
No on 27, yes on 20.
But if both 27 and 20 pass, I understand that 27 supersedes 20. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. I'm sure it'll go to court, and there'll be a lot of trials over it.
All
But
right.
Well, and I love the way they word these because, well, I don't want to get into too much detail because I don't want to confuse anybody with it. But, just looking at it on the surface, some of these are worded a little bit backwards, and it's really misleading. And, they really should. There should be some law that says these things have to be straightforward. I mean, it's bordering on the ridiculous. We have a caller on line 1. Let's take Robert on line 1. Robert,
you stole my thunder.
how are you today, Robert?
You hit the nail right on the head. So many of these different ballot propositions are written in such a way that, like, I'll give you an example. There's a ballot proposition and it has to do with parks and water and, fuzzy little things that people like to pet and hug and stuff like that. And about, I think it was in the late 1980s, Prop 70, Wildlife Park and Bond Act. It was a $500 million bond, and it really sounded good. And then all of a sudden, if you really took a microscope out and a fleet comb, you found out that this was a gigantic environmental move for a special interest agency in Southern California to get a big chunk of money. And if these things were written in a way, in a very common sense, no more than 2 paragraphs, so that the average person could understand it, nobody would vote in favor of these things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Robert. Is there? How can that be done, Shannon, in the future? Is there any way? Does the Secretary of State? They don't write these, but they get to okay it, don't they? Or is it the Attorney General?
It's the Attorney General. He gets to write the language or the preceding language. So he gets to approve or write the language. So what we need is we need to vote for Meg Whitman, and we need to vote in the people that are in her constitutional offices. Damon Dunn at the Secretary of State, Mimi Walters, Treasurer, Tony Strickland. You need to bring the top of the ticket so that we have some type of control over so that we have some kind of control over what's going on. And we need, you got Steve Cooley, you got Steve Cooley, Mimi Walters, Damon Dunn, Tony Strickland, and don't forget Carly Fiorina. We've got to have her defeat Barbara Boxer. This is the closest that we've been. But as far as state ballot initiatives, if you bring Meg in and you support her with constitutional officers, then that will help change this system.
Shannon, can I ask you a really quick question?
Sure.
Is there any way, I don't know if you heard this, but Arizona passed a law requiring positive proof identification of people that are going to cast a ballot. I can't even use my credit card without showing ID.
When you look at Arizona, go ahead. Sorry,
Shannon,
Marty.
let's do this.
The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Hold on, just 1 second. Hold on, Robert.
Robert, I'm going to have Shannon answer that after the break. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
We'll be
but
back
I will answer, Robert.
We'll be back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.